Man appeared in the territory which would later be called Egypt, in time immemorial antiquity, and it was not the modern Homo sapiens, but his predecessor, Homo erectus. Thanks to stone tools and primitive but effective hunting skills, it went beyond the African homeland and reached the Pacific Ocean. Fossils of a subspecies of Homo erectus, called Yuanmu man, were found in China's Yunnan province, and their age is estimated at 0.8 to 1.1 million years BC. All subsequent migrations to Eurasia from Africa went through Arabia. This means that primitive people passed by the Nile on their way. Perhaps already 1.5 million years ago, some tribes lived near this river. In any case, this is the age of the oldest stone tools found in Ubaidi, modern Israel. On the road to the Middle East, it was impossible to pass by Egyptian lands. However, at that time people did not linger here. The very first burial site found by archaeologists in Egypt dates back to the 66th millennium BC. The Nile carried its waters to the Mediterranean Sea all this time, and it was even fuller then than it is now. A large number of Wadis dry beds of former rivers that once flowed into the Nile have been preserved. Fertile soils did not stretch in a narrow strip along this giant river, but stretched across the entire northeast of the African continent, where now there are lifeless deserts. However, there are no finds of tools of labor and hunting of primitive people in Egypt itself. Why? It's all about the hot and humid climate of that time. The ecosystems of the Middle East and Northern Africa bore little resemblance to those of today during the fertile interglacial, during which the present-day man of reason was formed. Only 9,000 years ago, the Sahara was a savanna. The Nile in its upper reaches was covered with dense jungles growing on swamps due to high humidity and tropical heat. The lower reaches of the Nile were swamps, with river water mixing with sea water in the delta, which was equally uncomfortable for both riverine and marine species. The whole neighborhood of the Nile, especially downstream, was a dense tangle of tropical trees. Under their roots squelched thick black water, which reeked with the stench of rotting organic matter. The primitive hunters, who left their native Africa in search of free land, tried to get past these places as quickly as possible. The Egyptian lands became suitable for human life only when the Ice Age and the aridization caused by it, that is the Great Dry Land, began. From the 8th to the 5th millennia BC, as the jungle retreated, people gradually settled the Nile environs. By this time, the Neolithic Revolution had already taken place. Man had mastered the advanced technologies of cattle breeding and the skills of primitive agriculture. The very first trace of human culture in Egypt are considered to be drawings from the Cave of Swimmers, located in the Libyan desert. Their age is estimated at 8,000 years. In the fertile Fayum oasis in the middle of the 5th millennium BC, already lived a people who made not only polished stone axes, but also ceramics, amphorae, bowls, and plates. At that time, there was no state here yet. The first rudiments of centralization in the form of tribal unions appear near the Nile around 3500 BC. Separate centers of prehistoric Egyptian civilization emerge: Cheni, Nagata, and Nekhen. The latter, by the end of the 3rd millennium BC, became the capital of the newly formed Upper Egyptian Kingdom. The first pharaohs appeared in Egypt long before the centralized state. Archaeologists know about them because already in Xvi century BC, they were buried in special underground constructions consisting of several burial chambers. These rooms were filled with various valuable objects that were to be useful to the leader in the other world. The first pharaohs who ruled in the most ancient cities near the Nile are attributed by Egyptologists to the so-called Oo dynasty. Where did such a strange number come from? The matter is that initially the most ancient was considered to be the first dynasty, to which was attributed the unification of the upper and lower kingdoms of Egypt. It was considered that pharaohs of this dynasty ruled since Xi century BC. In the beginning of XX century, new archaeological finds have allowed to allocate so-called Dynasty 0, in which board in fact there was a union of two kingdoms, and this process has stretched for centuries. And pharaohs of the first dynasty, as it turned out, lived a little later. Then, archaeologists have found burials of rulers of the Egyptian kingdoms living earlier than Zero Dynasty. They had to be named Dynasty 00. The process of formation of Egypt as a separate civilization and state took the whole second half of 4 millennium BC. If you liked the video, then don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. There will be a lot of interesting, shocking, and exciting things ahead.